Welcome to Folk and Horror Phenomena. My name is Peter. This is my new horror side of the channel, which after years of writing and talking about folk music, I've decided that I'm going to turn my attention to horror film, mostly because I've been watching horror films since I was a kid. But in the last 3 or 4 years, my attention's really shifted to the genre, and I've really grown attached to it. So I thought I'd share my thoughts on it, like many of us, but let's see what I can contribute to the space. This will be my part 1 on the top 10 horror films of 2024. Yes, jumping on that bandwagon down that well-worn road of top 10s, but I thought, well, let's put another voice into the darkness, eh? Just to clarify, there'll be some mild spoilers in here, but hopefully nothing too serious. Hopefully you've seen these films already. If not, this might encourage you to find that time to sit down and enjoy. My number 10 is Falling Stars. This is a very interesting pick, to be honest, and I haven't seen it on anyone else's list. I actually haven't seen Falling Stars since 2023. I saw it at a horror film festival, and it was part of the lineup there. So it's kind of a testament to how much it stuck with me, even over this past year, over a year really. So Falling Stars is a film by Gabriel Biancheski and Richard Carpenter. This very unusual kind of alternate world, really. It's got a kind of, it's almost got a post-apocalyptic feel to it. Everything seems to be there, everything seems to be working. There's this yearly ritual that everybody has to do. This ritual is called the First Harvest, and what it is, everybody kind of goes inside, they shut all the house up, they leave offerings outside, and what it is there's this sensation, this feeling. Everybody is told that there's witches. These witches come down from the sky, where the name of the film comes from. And if you're caught out in where these witches are, you know, bad things are going to happen to you, basically. The premise of the film is quite small, actually. There's a friend of the brothers who kind of brags to the main characters that he's seen a witch. He managed to shoot this witch and bury them in the ground. There's kind of a big deal in this world, because the way the world is built is that there's a lot of vagueness. It's like the old idea of these witches is folklore, because anyone that's seen one has died, and you know, there's a handful of older people out there who have the knowledge. A way of understanding it really is, if you're really into video games, is if you play like a roguelike game, like a really good roguelike game. You know, when you start the game and you know that you have an idea of what's going to be in it, but you're not 100% sure of the rules and the content, and so you go through it, and in the game you'd probably die very quickly and then start again, and you know a bit more really. Well, this is like if you never got past those first stages where, you know, there's so much ignorance that's projected itself on the characters. This is definitely primarily a film about, you know, generational shame, you know, possibly trauma or something. You know, in this, it's like bad things have happened in the past, and those things are going to affect future generations. And, you know, as time has passed, the understanding of how to deal with this has totally changed. Well, the younger characters in here are trying to make better on things, but, you know, it's a tricky business. If you've not seen it, it had a minor release in the UK. I think it's sometime in August, September 2024, but I'm sure it'll be on disc somewhere. I'd definitely recommend that. So my number 10 is Fallen Stars. My number 9 is Heretic. So Heretic has had quite a lot of buzz. It's done quite well from what I can gather. So Heretic is a film written and directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. It's known mostly because Hugh Grant's in it as the antagonist. Hugh Grant seems to be on an upward trajectory at the moment, which is pretty good. I much prefer in this phase of his acting career to his rom-coms of the 90s. It starts off and it's got a couple of Mormon missionaries in it. So you've got one played by Sophie Thatcher, one by Chloe East, and they've been given the information of this man who said that he's interested in their faith and wants them to go and talk to him. So they go into Hugh Grant's house. Hugh Grant's called Mr. Reed. So they go in. You've probably seen the trailer. He seems like an amiable kind of person. He's got a pie in the oven. His wife's in the next room, that kind of thing. But as time goes on, these Mormons realise that maybe not everything is as it appears. The first noticeable thing about this, which is very surprising, was that is the start of it. It's got very sexually explicit discussion at the very beginning, which is kind of reminded me of Reservoir Dogs, actually. But the strength of the film comes from Hugh Grant's performance, which is very good. There's no denying that. Why isn't this higher in my list? On paper, I should really love this film. It's primarily a philosophical discussion. You could say it's a film of two halves. This is a film of 2/3 and 1/3. 2/3 of it is mostly dialogue discussion. Last third is kind of more standard fare for what you'd expect from a horror film, really. But in those 2/3, you have comparisons between philosophy of religion. You have aspects of pop culture, sociological theories thrown in as Mr. Reed tries to ask a bunch of questions and grapple with the idea of faith, really, and what he thinks himself. The trailer kind of was very vague, but it kind of left you thinking like maybe this is going to be a bit like Saw or something, with loads of traps and things like that. It's nothing really to do with that. I mean, it is literary. Not everything in it is fully surprising to myself, but it's got a good way of going about things, I think. And one way in which it succeeds is it's probably slightly more vague than something like Knock at the Cabin. Knock at the Cabin was selling itself as being like a theological discussion, but whether it's because of the source material or because of Shyamalan's involvement, it felt like there wasn't really a grey area with that. It was like, not giving anything away there, religion is in there. There's no other real credible explanation for what's going on. Whereas this film doesn't have a bit of wiggle room. Like I said, this is a very competent film. It's very well shot. It's atmospheric. But it didn't blow me away as much as I was expecting. But nevertheless, it still makes number 9 for the top 10 horror films of 2024. My number 8 is Late Night with the Devil. Late Night with the Devil is a supernatural horror film. This was directed and edited by Colin and Cameron Cairns. And the main actor, I do apologise, David Dastmalchian. It's also got Laura Gordon and Ian Bliss in it. This is an interesting film. It's based in the 70s, in 1977. Main character, who's known as... He hosts a chat show called Night Owls. Night Owls is a typical American US chat show from the 70s. In many ways they go all out in this film. You have all the jingles. You have... this is a Halloween themed episode, so you have all the bats on strings and things like that. The cheesiness that comes with it. The band is playing, and then they have these guests on. The plot revolves around these guests. Well, it revolves around the fact that the presenter's having a bad time of things. He's never managed to beat his competitors in the chat show arena. He's had some bad luck. His wife has recently passed from an illness, and now he's wanting to make a big comeback, big splash, and to get high ratings. So they've come up with this episode where it's got everything. It's got a psychic, it's got a professional skeptic, and as its centerpiece, it has this whole thing about demonic possession. There's an expert and this girl who supposedly is possessed by the devil. The things it does well, like I said, it's very much in its era. It's well acted, it's believable. Yeah, that all tracks. And then it kind of builds up, and I've heard a few complaints about this film. Some are usually around the ending. The ending is a bit bonkers in the sense of, if you were suspended your disbelief for the whole film, if you weren't sure if this was just a setup, if you were thinking this was just real, then, or you're thinking that the spirit stuff was all made up, then the ending kind of is a little bit vague, but it's also got some elements that make you that don't quite fit the aesthetic up to that point. I, for the record, love it. I think some of the final scenes are really good. They really fit in with the retro vibe. They really fit in with the kind of the atmosphere that's been evoked. Everyone's acting really well. There is some criticism of this film, and that there's a few assets in it that are AI generated, and it is one of those cases that once you know that, it sticks out like a sore thumb, really, especially if you've ever toyed around with AI tools. I don't think that should really bring the film down, though, what the film has accomplished. I mean, you can smell the cigarettes in this film, and the kitsch little kind of buffet snack table is fantastic. You know, for a film that's on a relatively small budget, they make quite a bit out of it, and as a gimmick, it works. You know, it really works. So I'd definitely recommend Late Night with the Devil. You've probably seen it already. If you haven't, give it a go. Especially if you like chat shows, it'll be right up your street. My number 7 is Long Legs. Long Legs. This had one hell of a marketing progression, didn't it? This was basically a film that feels very much out the 70s in a lot of ways. It goes up to modern day, but the aesthetics are very kind of sometimes a bit hard to pin down, really. Most famous, of course, for Nicolas Cage being in it as the antagonist. Nicolas Cage does Nicolas Cage in this film. He is off the wall crazy. The film is it's got Michael Monroe in it. She's an FBI agent who's got kind of like a tinge of psychic power to her, ESP, kind of clairvoyance. So it starts off where they're looking for some serial killer. She knows exactly where he is. They drive up in the neighbourhood, and she's like, he's in that house. And then from that, she gets put on another case, which is like a number of cases that they think are linked, but they can't find a link to them. People being murdered in their own homes, no signs of forced entry, that kind of thing. And so it goes on. Micah plays, she's very quiet individual, kind of a bit insular, a bit introverted. She's not great with people. She wants to solve these crimes, and she's got this gift. And this is a film that rewards rewatching, because you know why. You see the way she is, and you think, well, why is she like that? Is it her powers make her not want to get close to people? That might be it. You sometimes think that maybe she acts it in such a way that even though she doesn't know what's going to happen, it's like her subconscious is telling her, maybe don't do this, don't get attached to these people, because she knows what's coming, or part of her knows what's coming later. This has been compared to Silence of the Lambs. It's kind of like Silence of the Lambs. It has got like an eccentric villain, but it doesn't really work the same way. You haven't got the same interplay between the villain and the protagonist. Also, what they've got in it, which is something you'll see in a entry that's later on in this list, there's a lot of weird occult stuff that's kind of jammed in here. Satanism's like a core of this film, but there's like an occultness that's put in, so like there's these dolls that have a function that they keep finding in all these places, but they're a bit strange and nobody knows why they work and they don't make a full lot of sense. If you're into retro video games, think of something like The Seventh Guest. It's got that kind of vibe to it where there's this inanimate thing and it's causing things to happen, but it's to do with some kind of pact that's made. I mean, these things are happening. What it boils down to, it's kind of like what happens when you make a deal, and this deal's not a necessarily good one, and it changes who you are. It's very Faustian in that respect. It's got some good lighting. It's really interesting. It's like the lighting shifts in this film. It's like whenever Micah or Lee Harker is doing her detective work and you see her, she's using her faculties, her power, you can kind of see, like in the film, it illuminates. It's like a beautiful yellow colour. There's, the sound design's really nice. It's kind of like a bubbling undercurrent. There's a very interesting way in which they do the kind of occult influence with the voices and things like that. It's really, really good. Like I said, Nicolas Cage is very good. He's very unhinged. He puts the work in. 10 out of 10, Nick. So it has that. It retains that element of mystery to it, which gives it like a kind of weird edge, really. It's like some curiously sharp tool, when you cut your finger, you just don't realise how sharp something is. This is nicely paced. It has a couple of really creepy bits, especially when she's going in and out of the house, her home, when she hears a knock at the door. Yeah, long legs. And coming to number 6, we have Immaculate, directed by Michael Moen, written by Andrew LaBelle, and primarily starring Sydney Sweeney, whose star is ascendant at the moment. Sweeney's playing a young novice by the name of Sister Cecilia, who, due to events in her early life, turned to Christianity as an explanation as to why she was saved. So she goes to Italy, joins a convent in Italy, and works to help tend to the dying nuns there, and to take her vows. The big point about this film, the big thing that's pointed out about Immaculate, is that it came out at the same time as The First Omen. Now, it's very debatable, and even with myself, I had to really mull this over what was a better film. They're both very, very good films. The First Omen has an almost identical plot, really. A nun going to Italy to be like properly ordained and to work outside of their comfort zone when these strange things happen. In both of them, the nun gets pregnant. In this one, it is handled in a slightly different way to how it is in The First Omen. I think this film is probably slightly more stylish than The First Omen. The interesting thing about this is it's got that element of the outsider in it. So you have Sydney Sweeney is the outsider. She's joining this. Sydney Sweeney is joining this Italian congregation, this convent. But then when she gets there, it's like she's the outsider again. She witnesses all this weird society, these nuns that seem to be doing horrific things, bad things, and kind of injuring themselves. Brings to mind when everyone was talking about Opus Dei after the Dan Brown books, but it kind of messes with the mind because You know, you're seeing these nuns and you're not sure why they're doing these bad things, really. And there's that mystery there. I mean, this isn't an incredibly transgressive film. There's been many films about nuns doing all sorts of ungodly things. That is kind of like been, you know, a slight fetish to those films that people enjoy. It's nothing like that. It is a very artistic film, though. It is a claustrophobic film, you know, and Sweeney helps with this. Her performance is really engaging. She's trapped. You feel trapped in there with her. So what I like about this is I like the explanation for what's going on. You know, this film has all the trappings of Christianity and just the weird esoteric nature of this convent is fascinating. You know, it's got like one of the nails used in the cross for Jesus, and the explanation for what's going on is something probably a bit less supernatural, really. Still needs a suspension of disbelief, but you know, it's kind of understandable. And the film's ending, oh my goodness, the film's ending is chilling, and that is in part down to the sound design. That's all I'm going to say for that. But it's an anxious film. It's an anxious film, and a really interesting one. Which I think the fact that it's not part of a franchise, I mean, it hasn't got all this other baggage with it. First Omen fits and works really well with the other films, and I know there's a TV series at some point where it fits really well with that. But this is unrestrained. It's more like its own thing, and I think that's why it's made the list instead of the First Omen. So number 6 is Immaculate. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Look out for the next instalment of the top 10 horror films of 2024. If horror is not your bag, then also keep your eyes open for the upcoming videos about folk music. Thank you again. Take care.